Greetings, Vestige.
Like you, I am a prisoner in this place.
Tip number 1. DLC is not the same as an expansion pack. With ESO Plus, you get an expanded craft bag and a stipend of special points to spend at the in-game store, which typically cost real-world money, and access to all DLC. DLC is game packs that can typically also be bought at the in-game store. This is different from expansion packs like Morrowind, Somerset, or Greymoor that must be purchased separately even as an ESO Plus member. There are many good reasons for subscribing to the Elder Scrolls Online, but this is something to be aware of before you do. Tip number 2. Starter zones exist. On the topic of expansions, when you buy one, any new character you make begins there automatically. Expansions typically have more variable and difficult content designed for in-game players, so starting there is more difficult than if you only have the base game. Additionally, the main story of an expansion tends to expect a level of familiarity with the game and NPC characters, which can make it confusing for new players. Luckily, there is a workaround. Use a way shrine to port to your starter city, Davin's Watch in Stonefalls, Daggerfall in Glenumbra, or Vocal Guard in Aridian? The Elf City, and find a hooded figure. Following the quests they give you will land you in Cold Harbor, start the main story, and let you play through the game in a chronological manner. Well, this looks promising. After Cold Harbor, you'll wake up on a ship, ask the guy on deck to take you to one of the 3 tutorial islands, Canarthy's Roost, Bleak Rock Isle, or Stros Mackay, and follow the stories there to eventually end up back in Stonefalls, Glenumbra, or the Elf City, ready for your zone quests. Tip number 3. Skyshards are a thing.
Collect the Skyshards.
Skyshards are little glowy rocks
Shard of ethereal Magicka that carries the essence of known.
that you can find scattered around the world. For every 3 you find and absorb, you get 1 skill point. There are a lot of them, so this can add up fast. To find them all, I would suggest looking up a guide online, installing an add-on, or solving the riddle clues in-game in the achievements menu to track down their location. In the early levels, finding all of them in each zone is especially beneficial for a power-up. Tip number 4. Understand Magicka versus stamina. In the Elder Scrolls Online, you have 3 meters or attributes that determine what you can and can't do in combat. First is the red health bar. This decreases every time you are damaged, and if it empties completely, you die. Simple enough, right? Then you have the blue bar Magicka, which is drained when casting Magicka-based abilities, and the green bar Stamina, which is drained when casting Stamina-based abilities.
Once again, I prove that I'm a scholar, not a warrior.
You can raise each of these attributes by 1 point every level up, and generally most skills have both a Magicka-based and Stamina-based morph, meaning it can be evolved to either cost Magicka or Stamina. The exception to this is weapon skills, which are usually one or the other, Stamina-based or Magicka-based. The reasons it's important to understand the difference between Magicka and Stamina is because it helps you pick which attributes, skills, and skill morphs to put your points into.
That's our target.
It's also important because, tip number 5, character creation matters. What race you pick determines what you're best at in terms of Magicka versus Stamina abilities. This is because each race has different, unique racial passives that are usually geared toward one or the other. The races best at Magicka are the High Elf and Breton. The races best at Stamina are the Redguard, Orc, Wood Elf, and Nord. Meanwhile, the Argonian, Dark Elf, and Khajiit are good at both. Within these, certain races are better at Magicka, Stamina, or favor a certain playstyle. Wood Elves, for example, are excellent at stealth, Argonians are good healers, and orcs have a boost to run speed. Of course, these differences are subtle enough that if you're determined to play against type, you can, at all but the most competitive levels. But especially if you're new, knowing what each race is best at can really help you build your build. For a detailed list of all the unique racial passives, I'll put a link in the description. Tip number 6, double down on your attributes. This basically means that if you're a stamina race, put all your points into stamina, and if you're a Magicka race, put all your points into Magicka. Health can generally be ignored if you don't plan on tanking, and although a little extra there in the early levels can be beneficial, it's generally best practice to dump all your attribute points in one place, your attacking stat. This is because the damage of your ability scales based on your max Magicka or max stamina depending on the morph.
I am unstoppable!
Tip number 7. Use abilities from each of your class skill lines. The game doesn't make this especially clear, but having an ability on your bar and earning experience points gains you experience in that skill line, unlocking further abilities. A good practice is to immediately put one ability from each class skill line on your bar so it progresses. Tip number 8. Weapon and armor skills progress just by being equipped. In the case of armor, it's necessary to equip 3 pieces of the same type, light, medium, or heavy, at the same time to begin leveling it up. For weapons, you have to actually kill something with the weapon equipped to begin progressing down the skill line. Tip number 9. Know the difference between a light and a heavy attack. A light attack is when you click the attack button while looking at or targeting an enemy or hapless townsperson. A heavy attack is when you hold down that button until an animation completes. Both kinds of attacks generate ultimate, but only heavy attacks restore resources like stamina or Magicka, depending on the kind of weapon. A heavy attack with a sword, for example, restores stamina, while a heavy attack with a staff restores Magicka. Tip number 10. Dodge and block. To dodge, the default keybind on PC is double tapping in a direction. This makes your character go into a roll that consumes stamina but avoids all damage, assuming the attack isn't a ground-based undodgeable one anyway.
The next thing to roll will be your heads.
Blocking, meanwhile, blocks only a percentage of damage rather than avoiding it all. Both are good in different situations, but just knowing the difference can be helpful. Tip number 11. Eat.
Right. Easy as honey-baked pie.
In ESO, you can eat food to increase your max stats. Ingredients to make your own food are fairly commonplace, and buying food at a guild store is relatively inexpensive. Increasing your health, Magicka, stamina, or all 3, is a huge boon, and will make the game much easier. Tip number 12. Upgrade your horse. Every day, you can go to a stable master to upgrade your horse in one of 3 ways. You can improve their speed, stamina, or carry capacity. To start with, you should upgrade speed until at least your horse is actually faster than you, and then carry capacity. Stamina affects whether you dismount on being hit, and is the least useful of the 3. Tip number 13. PvP your way to rapid maneuver. The PvP skill line in ESO is unlocked by PvPing, and rewards you with valuable skills. For that reason, it's wise to consider doing a little PvP even in the early game to unlock them. If you absolutely hate PvP with the passion of 1,000 burning suns, like me,
oh dear, well that is inconvenient, isn't it?
know that you can still unlock these skills by doing PvE quests in Cyrodiil, the PvP area. In particular, just by doing the PvP tutorial, you get enough experience to unlock Rapid Maneuvers, a skill that makes you and your horse much faster.
So fast.
The utility of the skill is so great, and the tutorial to get it so easy to complete, I recommend that everyone have it. Tip number 14. Join the NPC guilds early.
Welcome to the Guild Hall, Knowledge Seeker.
There are 3 NPC guilds you can join in your starter city. The Fighters Guild, the Mages Guild, and the Undaunted. All 3 offer unique and valuable skill lines that you want to start leveling as soon as possible. Each levels up by completing quests offered by the guilds, but there are other means of leveling them up in addition. For the Fighters Guild, fighting Daedra and doing dolmens levels it up. For the Mages Guild, finding lore books scattered around the world levels it up. And for the Undaunted, doing dungeons levels it up. Tip number 15. Research early and often. In ESO, there are special armors and weapons that have something called a set bonus, where you get benefits from wearing multiple pieces of the same set. These are very powerful and can sell in the guild store for a lot of gold.
Exquisite! My master.
Therefore, if you have any interest in crafting, either for yourself or to make money, it's important to know how to craft these sets. In order to do that though, you first have to know a certain number of traits for each armor piece. Traits are intrinsic properties some pieces of armor or weapons have, like sturdy or sharpened. You can research these traits at the relevant crafting station when you find pieces that have them. However, this research takes a certain amount of real-world time that increases for each additional trait you've researched on an item. This research time can be very long, so it's important that you start as soon as you can and keep researching consistently. I hope you found these tips helpful, or at least not harmful, for your first 15 levels. Remember to like if you liked, and subscribe for more guides. Thanks for watching, and goodbye.
Freedom! I remember this feeling.